What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's Sunday. Got another Piers Morgan debate. I love doing these. I always say that because I love doing these damn things, because these people, they just always make some of the most ridiculous arguments, and sometimes they're just not refuted. Like some of the just logical inconsistencies of some of these people, they just don't make any sense. Some of them will come on, they'll get refuted in certain ways, but they'll leave out a lot of information, and that's what I like to fill in those gaps with information. Of course, you guys know we cover a lot of news around here, so we're quite in tune to what's going on politically. So we love staying up to date, and we love to fill in the gaps of knowledge here and there whenever people come in and they just love to make these boisterous claims and all this blah, 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 blah. And sometimes these people just make absolute fools of themselves, just outright on its face. But before we get into the debate, I need you guys to smash that like button for me, subscribe, share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. That would be greatly appreciated if you could do that. But without any further ado, let's jump right into this. Check this out, y'all.
The most egregious accusation you make against him, though, is that he's an extremist because he has a tattoo. Could you tell us what the tattoo is?
The tattoos specifically, I did not make the allegation that he's an extremist. It was actually
you
his,
repeated the
fellow
allegation.
colleague
So what's
who
the
called
tattoo?
him as an insider threat.
Yeah, right. So what's the
Not
tattoo?
me.
I can tell you. It says
it was his fellow
No,
colleague.
let Wajahat answer, because Wajahat raised the tattoo.
Go ahead.
Wajahat, it's a fair question. What is this tattoo that you're so upset about?
It was his colleague. Wait. Two things.
Wajahat, hang on. Simple question. What is this tattoo that you're so upset about?
I wasn't the one upset about it. I was talking about his fellow colleague. This is exactly what I said. His fellow colleague.
Do you know what it was?
In the U.S. Army, called him out as a potential insider threat.
Well, what is the
tattoo?
tattoo?
The tattoos on his chest.
What is the tattoo?
Also, I called him an extremist based upon his own book. Read the book.
What
American
is the
Crusade,
tattoo?
His own words.
If you don't know what the tattoo is, just admit it.
Oh my Lord! Listen,
would you
like
to
to
tell me what the tattoo is?
I want to,
No, I'm genuinely intrigued. Do you know what it is or not, Wajahat?
We got a panelist.
Wajahat, do you know what it is or not?
She hasn't spoken yet. A woman hasn't spoken yet.
She's going to come. She's going to answer the question you're not answering. Final question to you, Wajahat.
I did answer it, but
Final
go ahead.
chance.
I got my colleague right here.
Be honest, Wajahat. Do you actually know what that tattoo is or not?
Listen, what I do know is I read his book, and in his book, if you read it, called American Crusade, in his book, wait a second.
Be honest.
In his book.
Be honest.
I am. Look,
ironically,
you guys are putting lipstick on a pig,
no one's going to crucify you
bending
if you
the
don't
knee
know
for
the
Donald
answer.
Trump,
But do you know the answer?
Putting our national security at risk for Pete Hegseth. I'm telling you everything, and you guys are finding ways to spin. Why are you guys okay with a man who has an NDA with a woman that he allegedly sexually assaulted?
Do you know what the tattoo is that you got so upset about?
It was his colleague. His colleague called him out as an insider threat, not me. His colleague. And I also said, go to his book, read his words.
But just to be clear, Wajahat,
you've got Pete stuff. I am too extreme from the U.S. military. Pete Hegseth's own words. Why are you okay with that, Michael?
Wajahat, you don't know,
Michael, why are you guys okay with that?
You don't know,
literally in his book, American Crusade, he says he's too extreme for the U.S. military.
You don't know, do you?
Oh my gosh! All right, let's look it up right now.
I'd also love to know the names of some of Fox colleagues.
Don't look it up. Let's go back to Michael. Michael, hang on, Michael. We gave him his chance. He obviously has no idea. Michael, what is the answer?
This falls along a threat as an insider threat.
I've gone back to Michael now.
2021 pegged Pete Hegseth as a potential insider.
You had 98 chances to answer and you failed the test. Sorry, I'm going to Michael. I'm going to Michael. Don't talk over each other. Michael.
The tattoo in question is called a Jerusalem cross. That this is a medieval Christian symbol, goes back a long time. In fact, at Jimmy Carter's funeral, there was a Jerusalem cross on the floor of the cathedral, and on the program for the funeral, there's one other tattoo that some have suggested could be extremist. It's the phrase Deus Vult, which is a medieval Christian slogan, a long traditional slogan that refers to God's will, and it goes back a long way. These are very traditional, very mainstream Christian symbols that not only are not extreme in any way, but which even the people who want to accuse him of extremism couldn't possibly name. That is pathetic.
Okay, so this is the problem with a lot of political pundits on the left and on the right. You know, a lot of people do this, and I don't understand exactly why they do this, but they have no sense of wanting to dive into the information, of trying to get all the information they possibly can about a certain situation. This is a perfect instance of that. The guy just reads a freaking quote and then thinks he knows everything, right? But he doesn't know everything. And, you know, the way they work around this is, oh, well, they said he's some sort of extremist terrorist threat, blah, 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 blah. They said it, not me. I'm not the one mad about it. They are. I'm just repeating what they said. It's a easy way to cop out. Like, oh, well, it's not me. I'm just repeating what these other. It's so ridiculous. And it's, once again, it's a good way to cop out from everything, to, you know, lose the accountability on that, right? To just get out from underneath a situation quick, fast, and in a hurry. And it just dissolves any culpability that one may have for any quotes that they may give out. This is ridiculous, because we need to dive into the information. We need to know exactly why these people are calling him an extremist, right? Pete Hegseth seems to be a good man for the job. He wants to bring the military back, to get the military to what they're supposed to be, is a war-fighting machine, well-oiled machine that can just go in, do the job, and get out. And what the Biden administration and previous administration, this was happening under the Trump administration as well, because, you know, Donald Trump can't control every single aspect of every single thing that goes on within the military. The military is its own branch. They do think, of course, you know, he is the commander-in-chief. If he wants to change something, he can change something, but, you know, the military does stuff. And a lot of times it goes oblivious to the commander-in-chief, right? You can't know everything that's going on within the military. Well, that's why you need to have a good Secretary of Defense. That's why these people need to hire the right people for the jobs to command the military. So make sure the military doesn't go woke and can be a well-oiled machine that can fight, you know, wars against near-peer adversaries on two different fronts. That's been our motto, our pretty much modus operandi, if you will, since World War II, since we had to do that. And at this current point, you know, the military is way too focused on being woke, on being, you know, up to date with the woke culture, if you will, which is ridiculous. We don't need to understand, you know, white rage or anything like that, like General Milley was talking about. We don't need to understand these things. We just need to understand the art of war, if you will. And that's what the military seems to be. They put this idea out there that they're just trying to broaden their horizons. Well, no, that's not what a military really needs to do, is it? They need to be, once again, a well-oiled machine that can go in and win wars. That's what our military is for. We don't need our service members to understand woke ideology to go in and win a war, do we? No, we do not. And I think Pete Hegseth is going to bring that to the Department of Defense, if confirmed, of course. And that's a tough road, obviously, because a lot of Democrats during that confirmation hearing were doing a lot of grandstanding, a lot of virtue signaling, a lot of just nonsense, you know, putting up all these excuses. Oh, well, he did blah, blah, blah this and blah, blah, blah that. Well, nobody cares about these things. You know, they wanted to talk about his qualifications. Well, I think serving in the military for, you know, 10, 15 years, however long he was in the military, I forget right off the top of my head, but I think that's enough qualification right there, right? Being able to communicate, right? As the Secretary of Defense, your job is not to go in and fight wars. Your job is to communicate to the military, because it's civilian run, supposedly, right? So you communicate from the president to the military to all the branches themselves. Communication is a qualification. He does have a very good communicative skills, if you will. So I think he's a pretty good fit. We shall see, though. I will hold my tongue. From looking at all of his qualifications, from looking at his past, from looking at everything, he's got the military experience. He's worked with vets, so he knows what goes on post-military, if you will. So that's not a question. He's worked at Fox, so his communication skills are pretty good. We can all see this. Right, he's got some demons from his past. Right, I love how Democrats, they try to use this as a mark against a person. Well, anybody that has lived a little bit of life, like these Democrats know this, that you learn from your mistakes. You become a better person depending on how you learn from your mistakes, right? Like, to say that somebody made a mistake is disqualifying just outright. That's BS. Just on its face, BS. Because as long as you learn from your mistakes and you take that knowledge that you've learned from that mistake and use that to step in the right direction, to move away from that mistake, to not make that mistake happen again, that's a sign of a pretty good person. That's the sign that you're never going to make that mistake again, right? That you learned from that and you're going to change the way you act, the way you go about making decisions, blah, 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 to make sure you never make that mistake again. But, enough of my railing. Let's keep going.
I see that. Yeah, but Julie, I don't agree with that. I mean, I had Dennis Quaid on yesterday. He knows 100 people who've lost their homes. He wants her recalled immediately. You think she literally disappeared?
Fine. Then he should get the signatures, circulate the petitions to get a recall. That's not a problem. I mean, listen, the beauty of living in this country is there are mechanisms with which to do that if you so choose.
Yeah.
I would say to you, however, the larger issue here is that California is not the only state that deals with natural disasters, and Republicans will not be in charge forever. What goes around comes around, and I would be very, very wary of throwing out these kinds of contingencies, because one day Donald Trump will not be president. One day Mike Johnson will not be speaker. One day there will be Democrats sitting in both those offices. And one day Louisiana, Mike Johnson's home state, or Florida, Donald Trump's home state, probably sooner rather than later, is going to have a horrible natural disaster. And on that
it's
day,
already happening.
when that happens,
but we have them, and we have competent governance.
Of course,
have you met Ron DeSantis?
Plenty of Democrats. This happens all the time. Listen, I'm from New York, and I recall very clearly when Ted Cruz would not vote for Hurricane Sandy relief, and then a few years later, all of a sudden, this horrible situation in Texas happened, and he came crawling hat in hand to New York senators and to New York members of Congress, begging them for money for Texas. So if you want to go down this road, feel free. If you want to take advantage of people's natural disasters, feel free. But the reality is, when that
Piers,
happens to you, expect that what goes around comes around.
All right, Wajahat.
Yeah, real quick. California is my home state. It is the 5th largest economy in the world, the most populous state in the country, 40 million people. Currently suffering from one of the most devastating fires. Over 100,000 people have been displaced. You know what's free? Compassion. You know what's free? Decency. You know what's free? Empathy. The United States of America can afford that. The president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, at the very least, he can do that. Don't be cruel. Don't promote misinformation. Don't promote an AI-generated image of Los Angeles on fire and replacing Hollywood with Trump was right. You know what you also agree on is climate change, which is here, which will exist after Republicans and Democrats. And if I take the logic of Michael and Dave and cruel MAGA folks, then Ted Cruz should not have gone to Cancun while his state was freezing. These dumbass Republicans in Texas, this is for everyone watching around the world. For the sake of politics, not for the sake of money, not for the sake of national security, they are off the national grid. They have their own grid. So if they want to actually resign, if you want leaders to resign, Texas Republicans should resign for literally helping their own constituents.
Commendable whataboutery.
Climate change.
Commendable whataboutery.
Climate change.
In fact, climate change actually bears very little contribution to this.
A study came out just today. Climate change could be blamed for...
I have studied it probably more than you've studied it, I can guarantee you. And actually, the reality is...
Just today, UCLA scientists came out and said that climate change could be blamed for...
Also, historically, Los Angeles...
25% of the fuel available for the fires, but... The fires would have happened regardless, but climate change made it worse. Just like the category 5 hurricane in Florida.
The truth is,
another perfect example of just rapidly running your mouth and don't know what in the hell you're talking about. This guy just goes on. Ted Cruz should not have gone to Cancun. Hang on, trying to compare this to the Los Angeles mayor or whatever. That's a ridiculous comparison. That's not even a comparison, because Ted Cruz is a senator. He has no control whatsoever over policy in Texas, over how emergency responses are handled in Texas. Although the mayor of Los Angeles most certainly does deal with the day-to-day management of how Los Angeles is run and how they respond to disasters, for crying out loud. Senators have no say-so whatsoever on that. That's a ridiculous comparison right there in what she was talking about. Of course he's going to vote against Hurricane Sandy. It has nothing to do with Texas. It has everything to do with New York and, the New England area. It has nothing to do with Texas, so why would he vote on that in the first place? But, I mean, that's kind of a ridiculous, ridiculous thing to throw out there. Like, so what? It has nothing to do with Texas. Like, he's voting in the interest of his own state. How would voting in the interest of his own state helping New York? How does that help Texas? It doesn't. So that's a ridiculous comparison right there as well. And I know we just blatantly shifted topics, just boom, from some ridiculousness outright to what's going on in Los Angeles, which is a tragedy, right? But why would Louisiana vote to help California? Like, I just don't see why that's relevant. I understand how people could think, oh, well, we need to help each other. Sure. But I just don't see how that's relevant to California right now. None of this is gonna help California, right? Voting for any assistance, that's way down the road. They're not going to get it until much, much, much later. Plus, it's all going to be in a deficit anyway. So it's a moot point at this point. But getting back to what else he was talking about with that study now. The longtime viewers of this channel that follow this channel continuously, they know I just covered that study the other day. And what did we find? Lo and behold, at the very end of that news article, hang on, they found that it was not conclusive. All of the study that they did, the 25% more fuel, not conclusive whatsoever. At all. So once again, it's another example of these people reading a headline, might read the first paragraph or two, and then just throwing the news article down and moving on to the next item or whatever. They just don't know what the hell they're talking about here, right? It's just ridiculous with these people. They don't ever just get all the information you can about something before you start running your mouth about it. That's what I can't stand about these people. And just like with a video I made the other day, somebody come in, you don't know, blah, yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about, right? I read the entire news article out. This is what I do constantly. I make it a point to read the entire thing out so we can get all the information in totality, so then we can make a logical decision on what our opinion is about said subject, right? That it just makes no sense for these people just to come in and not have all the information, then act like they're an expert on this information and make these decisions that impact a certain situation based upon incomplete data, if you will. It just aggravates me to no end when these people do this. And Watch a Hat just does this constantly. And right, and he tries to get out from underneath all these things when people refute everything that he says as, oh, well, I'm not the one that said that. It's them that said that. It's just totally ridiculous, in my opinion. But I think I've rambled on for long enough on this one, y'all. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. These little debates are fun. I love putting them together. And I just, once again, like I said, I just do this for fun. I'm just having a good old time over here, just refuting what these people say, making some of them look like idiots just outright. Once you know all the information and you realize that, hey, they just took a section of this and just ran with that. They don't know that the news article, which these news articles constantly do this, they manipulate everything. They'll phrase things in the first few paragraphs to make you think, oh, well, this is what happened. And then once you start reading down and you get all the information, you realize, well, that's not really what they're saying, is it? They're talking about something totally different over here, totally inconclusive with the climate change, right? That's just ridiculous. Like I just can't stand that about people. They don't ever read the full news article. But hey, it is what it is. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section. That's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching, and y'all try to have a good day. Stay logical. Peace.